Welcome back to Python Scripting for GIS Applications. This is a class at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and it's spring semester 2013. From last time, your assignment was to create a script tool where we have an input point feature class. And from this input point feature class, we'll create a line feature class and then add any field that we have as optional fields for the user to select to our output line feature class. So for example, I'll add point date and days to my output feature class and then run my script, and it comes back and it says it's going to add point date and days, and then the script's completed. And indeed we do have our output adds these two fields, point date and days, which were originally fields in the original point feature class. And if we look at this field, its property is it's a date field in terms of type. So it inherited that type from the original point feature class. And this field, its property is its type is short integer, which was a type it originally was in the point feature class. So if we look at the script behind, here's the script that's behind our script tool. So basically we have two string variables that we get from our script tool. This first is going to be an input feature class, and we use that with the create feature class tool to create our new output line feature class. And then once we have this new output line feature class, we're going to add user selected fields to that new output line feature class. So basically we had string of fields from the user, and we'll split that looking for semicolon, and that will become list of string of field names. And then basically we'll make an empty list of field objects and then step through this list of field names and then use the argpy list fields function to get the field object associated with each of those names. So basically this typically returns a list, but here we say just give us the first item on that list that's returned. Okay, so then we append that to our list, and when we're all done, we have a list of field objects. So then for each field object in that list of field objects, we'll run the add field tool with the field object.name and the field object.type. Okay, in this session, I want to teach you a new parameter called a Boolean parameter. So here I put a display name polygon hectares ? That will be an input parameter, and we'll make it the type optional. So the user may or may not check this on, and it's a Boolean parameter. So basically, if the user checks it on, it returns a string true. And if the user does not check it on, it just returns an empty string. So we'll run this script tool. So basically it's going to cut out polygons. So we'll cut out parcels that are within a 1 mile buffer of the Chena River, and we'll output that back to our parcels and call them clipped parcels. Okay, so this is the Boolean variable. So that's a checkbox. So if I check that on, it will return the value true. And if I check this off, it will return an empty string. Okay, so what we need to do is figure out, okay, if this is checked on, we need to know, well, what are the units for these polygons? Are they in feet or are they in meters? And then we could calculate hectares for each polygon for this output shapefile. So to do that, I'll show you in the ArcPy window how we could do that. So the first thing we'll do is we'll get a feature class. So input feature class is going to be equal to, let's take my parcels. Actually, let's space equals space parcels. And then we'll describe these parcels and make a describe object. So that's arcpy.describe, describe my parcels, or my input feature class. Either way would be fine. Okay, so one of the properties of a describe object is a spatial reference. So spatial reference object is going to be, that variable is going to be equal to describe object dot spatial reference. Okay, and then we've got our spatial reference object, and one of the properties of the spatial reference object is dot meters per unit. So now if we look at linear conversion, the value in this variable is how many feet are in 1 meter, since the XY coordinates of our parcels were in US feet. So basically, as long as your feature class is projected, you can get a conversion factor to convert from whatever the XY coordinates linear units are to convert to meters. So then once we have that conversion factor, then it's really easy to convert to hectares. Okay, so when we run our script tool, we'll have a parameter that's either going to be checked on or checked off. So you'll have something like that in your script with your script tool. And if it's checked on, that will return a value true. And if it's checked off, that will return a value, an empty string. So that's how the Boolean parameter works. It's just an on or off. If it's checked, it returns a string true, and if it's not checked on, then it just is an empty string. Okay, so what I want you to do is write a script tool that will take input polygons, and assuming these are all in some projected coordinate system, and clip those polygons with some other polygon, and then add a field for polygon hectares in your output. So here are my output to clipped parcels. And then if I say OK, since I checked on that Boolean parameter, it should add a field. So then if I look at my clipped parcels, I'll turn off all the fields except for shape and poly, area in hectares, and area. So then if I open up my attribute table, we've got for every polygon automatically calculated the area in hectares, and I could double check that by right mouse clicking on this field and go calculate geometry. By default, it gives you square feet because this particular feature class, its XY linear units were in feet, but we can change that as a check to hectares, and we should get the same value. So we do get the same value as a check. So that's what you need to do for the start of our next video session, is basically write a script and a script tool that will clip out polygons, and then if the user checks on this Boolean variable, it will also add a field for each polygon, what is its area in hectares. And I'll go over the solution to that script at the beginning of our next video session.